Hi, let's look at this problem of candidate questions. It's come up in both Peterson's book and in previous lectures that I've made, and it's not been well understood. It's not draft questions. The whole purpose of candidate questions is to help identify what information is not needed. So the general idea with a survey is that your research hypothesis has identified some concepts of interest that you want to know about. Either the relationships between concepts or the attributes of those concepts. But anyway, you're dealing with concepts and usually a small number of them. Now the candidate questions is to answer the question, well, what is it you want to know? Do I want to know about the size? Do I want to know about the frequency? Do I want to know, the color of it? Or what attribute do I want to know? What is it about this that I want to know? We'll get down to the specific wording of the number of questions that I might ask about that thing so I can get at the attribute. But at the moment, for the candidate questions, I'm simply trying to identify what is it about the concepts that I'm interested in. Example from my own research, I was interested in how people in organizations, particularly say in the IT industry, but people from different professional backgrounds or different worldviews, how did they communicate? Because we know one of the big problems in IT is that the business owners frequently have difficulty talking to the software developers. They come from completely different worlds. Business owners deal with approximation, they deal with the business problem, they're dealing in concepts that probably make sense to the business. The software developers deal with computers, they deal with things that make sense in computers. They're quite precise, and the difficulty is having these two talk to each other and understand each other. And I was interested in how did this happen? Now it happened that when I got a long way through the research, I came across this concept of boundary objects, which, that's it. But at the start, the problem was, all right, I have the concept of a worldview. So I need in some way to characterize that worldview. What is it I want to know about that worldview? And I guess the answer came down to I wanted to know how steeped in it they were, how much that worldview biased how they thought of the world. I guess that was the candidate question. I wanted to know about that. The second thing was I wanted to know about not so much how they communicated, but what aids to communication did they have. I didn't want to examine the insides of their minds, for example. That would go into cognitive science that I wasn't into. I know from my own experience that people tend to communicate with, say, hand gestures or drawings or specifications or some other tangible thing. So I was curious, what were these things that we used to communicate? So I could ask about that artifact, but the artifact is not necessarily a tangible object. It could be a story, a vision statement, or something of that nature. So the candidate questions help to identify what it is about the concepts that we're interested in and how we're going to use those attributes of the concepts to examine the relationships that we're interested in. That's the whole purpose of them. They tend to be quite high level. As I said, the research that I was interested in was to investigate how people from diverse backgrounds exchange meaningful information. You think about it, you think, there's so much written about the confusion between people, and yet we do manage to communicate. Somehow we do it. So how do we do it? And if we know how people do it well or better, we probably can help the people who aren't doing it so well. So there in that, I wanted to know the degree to which the person was engaged in that professional community. So how distorted was their worldview? The artifact, story or otherwise, over which they communicated, the means of communication. And then I wanted to know how well it was either understood or transmitted, and what did people do to assure themselves that what they'd been talking about or what they'd been communicating had been communicated successfully. So they were the candidate questions, the candidate areas of questions that we're talking about. Another one was the research that I talked about before, which was the project management example, where I wanted to know about the mechanisms that people used to, mechanisms that project managers used to control, monitor and coordinate a software development project. Well, it wasn't necessarily restricted to software development, but that was the area I was interested in. So I needed the concept of a mechanism. I need the concept of control mechanisms, monitoring mechanisms, coordinating mechanisms. I need the concept of a project. I need the concept of, it turned out in this one, I need the concept of culture and cultural distance. How did I define cultural distance? So then I could say, well, I can do the discovery, what kinds of mechanisms are used to control a project, what kind of mechanisms are used to monitor a project, what kind of mechanisms are used to coordinate a project. And then I could examine the relationships between those and cultural distance between a project manager and the people on the project. So the candidate questions are quite few and simple. They should be approximately the same as your concepts. It's useful to get them because then you can, I guess in some ways, it's the high-level design of your questions. The reason why it's useful to get them is because it clarifies what it is about the phenomena of interest that you should be asking about. It could turn out you want to know about let's see, maturity of something. And yet, if you really need to know about the maturity of something, you're going to have to construct questions to ask about that maturity or things around that maturity. As opposed to asking questions about, well, how many years have you done this? Well, maybe how many years doesn't relate to maturity. But identifying the candidate questions early helps you to focus what you should be asking to get the information you want.